Welcome to the Front Seat Life podcast. This is Jessica Butts, your host and CEO and creator of Front Seat Life, where I help you be unapologetically who you are in your life, love, and business. Welcome, everybody. I am super excited for this week's episode. I am sitting here with two of my favorite people of all times, and I will say today is my first threesome. I've never had a threesome before, and we are about to have our first threesome. So my two introverted guests today are definitely two of my favorite people, two of my favorite introverts. The first is Stephanie Wagner, who is my Director of Operations for Front Seat Life. She's become a dear friend, and literally none of this would be happening without her. And so she has just become an absolute integral part of my life. And you're going to love hearing her perspective as being an introvert, especially working with somebody like me who's so extroverted. And so I'm going to be honest, she actually asked to be a part of this. So Jeni is the other person who's here. And for those of you who are tracking my work, Jeni is somebody that has been a dear part of my life. She's a shamanic healer, an all-around amazing human being, and the exact opposite of me. And I think that's why I love Jeni so much. So Jeni and I met at a networking event when I very first started my business years ago, and she and I became very unlikely friends. And she's an INFP. Stephanie is an INFJ, and I'm an ENFJ. So as you're tracking, obviously, we all share the NF. So we are very creative and big picture. Stephanie's a little more S than me. And we're all definitely feelers. But reason I wanted to have these two on today, and again, have my first threesome, is because I think they both bring very interesting insights into the introverted dichotomy. So, ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Good to be here.
A little scary.
Yes.
It's so fun because my home, so this is just a little side note. I've always had this vision of my home being a place where I could do this. And we are now sitting in my home right now. I'm calling this my podcast studio as well as my home office. And I now get to have Stephanie here a lot, and Jeni comes here right after this. We're planning the Maui event that's coming up in March of 2019. So if anybody's listening right now and wants to come join us, we've got a couple of big things coming up next week in Seattle and on Zoom. You can join us and come find out more. And then in March in 2019, we're going to the freaking fabulous island of Maui and going to have what I'm calling a B event. It's truly going back to my therapy roots and doing Jeni's best work in this world of past lives and all the good stuff that she works on to help us heal all of that stuff. So it's going to be a beautiful place. So there's a couple spots left if somebody wants to join us. So, okay, ladies, I'm passing the baton. I literally want to know from you guys. Well, I always have something to say, don't I? Okay, so you got to go back and listen to episode 1. So let me just start by saying that today's episode is not about kind of digging in and going into what all the dichotomies are, because I think, if you guys are following along, I don't want to keep saying the same thing for you amazing loyal listeners. And by the way, thank you for your loyal listeners. Like, holy shit, people. It's only been up for like 72 hours and I have 77 ridiculous, amazing, like feel good. I lay in bed every morning and it's part of my morning routine now as I cry and read all of your guys' reviews. So thank you for those that are doing that. And for you loyal listeners, I don't want to kind of go back through this, but I really want people in my life like these two to share their experience of what it's like to be an introvert and what it's like for them in their relationships and what it's like for us to be different. So, Jeni, let's start with one of the funniest examples of all time of the difference in our introversion and extroversion-ness. So do you want to start by telling this hilarious story? Yes.
I will. And it was funny because I got to watch yours on Instagram.
This is a great story, you guys.
I guess it was this last April. I went and made my first tattoo appointment. And this was quite the tattoo. This was a 6-hour appointment. And that was just the beginning of it. And only one friend knew I was getting it. And he happened to be sitting there by my side. And other than that, my husband. No one else knew. And I'm watching Jessica.
The extrovert.
In Maui. And I think it might have been a couple weeks after, because I think I was already on to my second appointment, which was another 5 to 6 hours, because I was getting what they call a wrap. So it goes over one shoulder, down your back, off your other hip.
It's epic.
It is epic, and it's such an ordeal. It's been incredible.
And I remember coming home, because she was posting in Maui. She was posting about her friend talking about it. She was posting that her friend made the appointment, and she was flipping out that she made the appointment. She was posting that they had a drink beforehand. She was posting
All before
and then
it actually
got
happened.
this little tattoo that
Teeny
is the
tiny.
size of a dime.
Yep.
It's the size of a dime. That took maybe 12 seconds.
Yep.
And I came home laughing, and I showed the videos to my husband. And he just started laughing. He goes, "Does she know that you have a tattoo?" I said, "No, not at all."
Because you didn't post anything. So we go for a walk. One of the things Jeni and I do is we get out in nature and we walk together. And she came to my house when I was living on Mercer Island, and it was a beautiful summer day. I think it was July or August. And she turns around to walk away, and I see her entire back, because she's got a tank top on, is filled with a tattoo. And I literally scream out like, "Holy shit, what is going on, girl?" And so we then proceed to go eat pizza and have salad and drink wine and laugh our asses off about what a perfect example this is of an extrovert on social media making this huge deal about getting my first 12-second tattoo, and you, Miss Introvert, not saying one word about this epic journey you're going on.
At all.
Yeah.
And I mean, a 4 or 5 month process of being tattooed, and there's not one video on Instagram or Facebook. And if you see it, it's because you've been in my presence and I've shared it with you. And then some still don't know.
Yeah. And so for those of you who have listened to episode 1, or this is a reminder, is that extroverts live their lives outside. They give their best selves to other people. It's a part of their being that they enjoy. I enjoy sharing that. In that example, I talked about the stingray in episode 1 about sharing it with other people. And introverts, they only share that stuff with the people that they choose to invite in. And you, Jeni, chose to allow a few people into this epic journey, and I chose to share it with the entire world. And again, it's just part of our type.
It's an example.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really crystal clear example. It's crazy.
It is.
But so can you remind us, introverted and extroverted is about where you get your energy from? Is that primarily?
So it's all about our source of energy. And so Jeni, you really get your energy. Stephanie, you get your energy. My sister gets her energy from retreating, from being alone. They're nodding. From cooking and being alone and shutting out the world. I mean, Jeni, you had a photo shoot yesterday with Mandy, who's my photographer, and your photographer. She's coming over later, and you were like, "Oh my God, I was exhausted." Like 3 hours of changing your clothes and doing this and doing that. And sometimes I'm exhausted, but sometimes I'm super energized as well. And so it's just, again, your sense of energy. So it would make sense, right, that extroverts want to share that with others because it gives us energy. And where introverts, that retreating time, not having to share it with the world, not having to tell everybody what's going on with their lives, is a sense of getting yourself back and getting your energy back, especially when you have super busy lives like both of you do. I mean, Jeni, you see how many clients a week?
I see like 21 clients a week.
Wow.
I have a full schedule. So on my days off, I'm off.
Yeah.
And I choose very wisely.
Yeah.
Like I'll have chunks of time where I have self-care. I have chunks of time where I'm numbing out and doing nothing. I'm just being with myself. And then I'm like, okay, I'll go see this friend.
Yeah.
But it's one friend.
Yeah.
It's one. Yeah. Because that friend will energize me. So that's when I'll meet up with you and go for a walk, or my other dear friend. But it's very minimal because after seeing that many clients, I have to save some for my husband at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so if I don't
Yeah. And Stephanie, I mean, you deal with my craziness, all day long, and we're texting and you're dealing with my extroverted energy, and you're, the community liaison. You have 2 kids. You're running a household. That is true too. By the way, Stephanie's kids are absolutely the cutest ever and the most extroverted kids I've probably ever met. And you and your husband are both super introverted. Do you have anything to share about how that is for you?
Sure. I mean, I think back to, times when I was at home with Austin and, I wasn't working, but I was just home with him. And the boy would just we'd be driving in the car and he's just chat. And, and I had hit my limit at that time. It's I just need silence. And so it was hey, sweetie, we're doing 2 minutes of no talking. We were just doing because I needed my sanity back. I was little boy, please give mommy 2 minutes of silence. And then we can talk and then we can do stuff. But I really needed to check my introvertedness and his extrovertedness and do what I needed for myself. But it is a lot. And I think in the beginning, working with you and knowing you, that was one of my questions to you is how do I handle his extroverted energy when I'm an introvert and still guard that, especially when we're together all the time. And you were talking about take him to opportunities where he can let out his extrovertedness, potentially, not with you, so that you have a little bit of a buffer. But I think it is interesting when you have kids who are a different type.
Does that work?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I literally am about to call myself a dog, so please, all you extroverts, don't be offended. But we're a little bit like dog energy, right? You can't come home and expect your dog to be super calm. We got to go get our energy out elsewhere. We got to go lick other people and sniff some butts and say hi and hi, what's going on? What's happening? And, and so I think of Austin's energy in particular, and he is just so gregarious and so outgoing. He was at the Front Seat Life Christmas party this year, and it was so freaking cute to watch that kid he was having the time of his life, just running around and saying hi to everybody and slapping butts and can I get you a cookie and what can I do? And I mean, that just fed his little extroverted soul.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about being introverted and extroverted, from an introvert's point of view, because I am introverted, but I'm not I think I'm a 4. So I'm slight preference for it. I know when we tried to self-assess that, I think I went to your first event, your first Front Seat Life event, and you have a self-assess. And I was a little wow, am I extroverted or introverted? I don't know, because I'm in the middle. And I do get a lot of energy being around small groups of people, but I think that's my N, my need to connect. That really is coming out.
And your F too, your feeler,
right?
Wanting to connect.
I want to feel it and I want to connect. Versus it was kind of masking my introvertedness. So, and I do get that when I'm around people, they're you're not introverted. But so when I think about going to events, big events, Jeni and I were just talking about this, that the thought of it is draining. And it's okay, reaffirming, yes, I'm an introvert.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that for a minute, because I think this is a huge point and I talked about this in episode 1 with this man that I'm dating right now, is that all of his friends, his best friends, think he's an extrovert. And maybe he is, but I'm really witnessing this very introverted man. But yet introverts, their best friends, often think they're extroverted, because when you're with your besties, you can open up and you are your full self. So tell us a little bit about how that shows up in your guys' life with Joe or with your best friends.
Yeah, I think when I'm with my best friends, and then you've gotten to see it now, there's a real silly nature that comes forward. I have a real silly side, but no one's going to know that about me unless I'm with, and I can have a conversation, I can get loud in a conversation, but you'll never see that in a networking event or a meeting or a party where there's 20 people. You're not going to see that part of me. I'm going to be more of the observer. I'm going to stand back. I'm not going to participate in many conversations because they feel painful, to be honest. Yet you put me in a group of, especially my best friend, you just put me with one friend, or we're in a group of 2 or 3. Now you're going to see a different side of me. And often the first time people see that, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this about you, or that you're like this. And I'm like, oh yeah, like you're always so quiet. And it's like, there's a different energy that then comes forward.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that one of the things that I've noticed working with you and in a lot of different ways, I won't say that I'm an expert at Myers-Briggs, but I feel like I've taken on a lot of the information and internalized it and observed and processed. But I feel like a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but I do know people who kind of misdiagnose themselves as like, because they have some introverted tendencies, they think they're introverted when they are clearly an extrovert. Yeah. And I think that really goes to the front seat and how you have both, right? You, as the driver, as an extrovert,
very good.
are the extrovert, and your co-pilot is an introvert. And I think that anybody who sees any introverted tendencies, then they just like, they write off the extrovertedness and go, oh no, I must be an introvert because I have these feelings.
And that is such a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, because I actually had a client at one of our quarterly events, and she brought this up, and I realized this was a huge oversight on my part, that as an extrovert, she was thinking her best self always had to be extroverted. And she was like, girl, I am fucking exhausted. Like, I am out being extroverted all the time. And I went, whoa. Who told you that? And she's like, you did. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, I'm so sorry if I told you that, because that's actually only half of our front seat. And our front seat, go back and listen to episode 2, our front seat is made up of introvert and extrovert, like Stephanie's saying. And so as a very strong extrovert myself, I go on vacation by myself. I need to check out when I have a full day of clients. Like, I just need to not talk. I will binge watch Netflix. I will just sit in silence, and I need that time. And so I think as an introvert, when they sometimes think they might have extroverted tendencies, it is not an all or nothing, because our front seat, which is 80% of our energy, there's an introvert and an extrovert up there. So thank you, Stephanie, for saying that, because I think that's a really valid point. But then again, when I witness as an extrovert, and I'll just tell the story. God, he's going to kill me for telling all these stories. Yeah. But we went to a party very early on dating. We're still early on dating, but very early on at his work. And I am super extroverted, as you know, and I walk in and I'm just owning this shit. I don't know who these people are, but it's just who I am. And I'm just saying hi and talking and whatever. And when we're together and when he's with his close people, he seems super extroverted, just like you two when you're with your best friends. But we walk into this room and he clammed up.
Yep.
It was fascinating to me. And that's when that night, in that moment, I was like, oh, okay, I'm seeing you for probably what you are, which is actually an introvert. And when I witness you guys, I mean, Jeni, when you and I are together, it's just, you know, you would never guess who's the introvert and the extrovert, because she's talking, I'm talking, we're jiving, we're doing whatever. Stephanie, you and I the same. But yeah, when we go into big groups, when I witness you at networking events or other things, it's just a different energy, because it's a different preference. So think about the heart on the sleeve again. Oh, ironically, I have a heart on my sleeve today. That is crazy ironic. Thank you, Stella and Dot. I have a little heart on my sleeve because of your cute sweatshirt. That extroverts wear theirs on the outside, and introverts, that heart is on the inside. And so they have a preference to share that part of themselves with fewer people.
And I think this dichotomy is also, it relates to processing, correct? Like how we process. Yeah. And I think that's another really clear way to see. Like, I think about when we are in our meetings and we come up with some idea, I tend to have to sit quietly and think about it and process it internally. Whereas you're like, let me think this out and blah, 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 blah. You know, like you're talking through all of your thoughts. Whereas for me, I have to go quiet. Yeah. I have to be like, it all happens in the brain, but it can't It can't come out in words yet. It just, that's the way I process.
And introverts truly are internal processors. So what you're saying is they actually need this time to process in their heads. And we're extroverts. I mean, you guys walked in here today. They got here at 9. We made tea. And I was like, okay, I need to tell you everything that's been on my mind for 24 hours so I don't forget. And I literally had like verbal diarrhea. And I was like, Stephanie, can you write all of this stuff down? And then I felt better because I was like, oh my God, there's so many things that we need to do today that I want to get out of my head. And so, yes, extroverts are these external processors. And again, I think it goes back to texting. I think it goes back to email. It goes back to communication, that I literally cannot communicate enough. I am just all about checking in, over communicating all the words, more words that are needed. And then there's this introverted style of less is more.
Yeah. That reminds me of, so I started learning about introvert and extrovert before we met. And of course, I've learned a lot more since we met. But I remember I was in a relationship and he was an extreme extrovert. And so we often had this fight or argument about why you don't show up the way he wanted me to show up. Why are you not outgoing? Why aren't you not enthusiastic? Why don't you talk?
Wow.
And so I remember the first time polling this list between introverts and extroverts, and it was like this light bulb went on my head. Because he would get the feeling of utopia at a concert, and I'm like, can we leave? Because I'm completely drained. And he didn't, he took it as I didn't like being out with him.
Wow.
And so it was this feeling of being wrong.
Yes.
Like something's wrong with me. And when I finally understood, like I was like, this is me. No, I don't get high at a concert. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy going, but I don't have to externally express that. You're not going to see me jumping up and down and screaming and shaking you. I'm going to be like taking it in. And so understanding that that processor is so different. And when I came to understand that our brain actually processes it different, it activates a totally different part of the brain, then I was like, oh. And so that gave me insight into myself, and nothing is wrong with me. And of course, this relationship didn't work because he wanted me to be something other than I was. And then, you know, learning, it just continued to unfold.
Yeah. Isn't this powerful, listeners? I mean, I'm actually getting a little choked up over here, and this is what I do in this world, and I talk about it all the time, but it is this reminder. And the next book that I'm writing, and I'm trying to find some space to do this, is called Love Me for Who I Am. And a big part of understanding our personality type and all of these dichotomies is twofold. One, so that we can show up and be unapologetically who we are. So my whole thing is always, you know, in a new relationship with Stephanie, with Jeni, with my mom, with my sister, in any relationship, is being able to show up as who I am. I am loud. I am outgoing. I have a lot of words. I want to check. I mean, I can't apologize for who I am. If the person in my life doesn't want to accept that, I can't be married to that idea. And then on the converse side is this, what's called attunement, which is attuning to the people in our lives. So it's an infinity symbol, if you will. One side is us, which is called differentiation, you, us, me. And the other side is all the people in our lives. And so when we have people in our lives that are trying to change us, or, you know, let me just speak directly to you right now. If you are that person who is trying to change somebody else, knock it off. Knock it off. It feels like shit. I mean, imagine if someone's trying to change you and tell you you're wrong, you're too quiet. Why aren't you like me? I think, sorry parents, but I know you guys do this to your children. Why aren't you more extroverted? Why aren't you involved with more activities? Why are you so loud? Why are you so whatever? We do these things because it's different. Instead, my whole freaking BHAG of this entire podcast, all the books I write, everything that I do is to get people to understand themselves and quit trying to change everybody else. Because when we can release that codependent control over trying to make people the way that we want to make them, our lives can just free up. You know, again, this new relationship is so eye-opening because we are pretty different in this way. And it's like, I don't need to change him. I need to then show up and say, this is who I am. Can you love me for who I am? And if you can't, it's going to suck, but it's fine. I got to move on. But this is who I am. And so, Jeni, thank you so much for bringing that whole point up, because it's such a powerful one that sadly, and I don't even know where this comes from, but sadly, in our world, we try to make other people like us instead of trying to accept other people for who they are. And this is about putting our own oxygen mask on first. This is why we're having all these conversations, understanding who we are, journaling, doing the things, being able to come into a relationship and go, Stephanie, girl, this is who I am. Or Jeni, this is who I am. Mom, I need you to love me for who I am. This is my shit. This is what I got going on. No, I'm not going to shush. No, I'm not going to do whatever. This is just who I am. And then being able to love other people for who they are. And if you can't, you're going to have I'll just be honest, you're going to have a sad life.
Yeah.
You're going to have a sad ass, controlling, gross, disgusting life, trying to make everybody be like you.
And I think that's the power of your teachings. I think that's the power of Front Seat Life, is learning what these are. Because until I didn't know that. I didn't know I was an introvert until I did. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, then I had the knowledge and the wisdom of actually understanding myself, and then even deepening that and being able to create a world that more fit me.
Yeah.
But the whole time, when you don't know, you don't know. And
Totally.
people are telling you something's wrong. So you're like, what? Okay, I'm supposed to be more like this, but that I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And that I'm not wired that way.
And there's so much more energy in the world, right? When we just stop trying to be what everybody else wants us to be. Like you just said, what's wrong with me? Why am I wrong? I'm going to pathologize myself. This is what we do.
Yep.
We pathologize others, and then we also pathologize ourselves. Why aren't I more quiet? Why aren't I better at details? Why aren't I more logical? Instead of asking those questions, quit asking those questions, figure out who you are and just be more of that. And then I'm going to suggest going out and finding people who can accept that.
Yes.
I will continue to talk about my husband and my marriage, because it was a huge part of my life. It was 20 years of my life, massive learning experience. I will talk about that probably until the day I die, because so many lessons came from it. And one of the biggest reasons that we ended up not working out is I felt like there was a lack of acceptance of who I am. And there was so much of, why aren't you more like this? Why can't you be this way? Why can't you pay the bills? Why can't you blah, blah, blah? And it was finally just this point of like, because I'm just not. And you can either accept that and see me for who I am, or this is not going to work. And it, well, now we know what happened. Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Hey people, here is your chance of a lifetime to go on an amazing, life-changing retreat in Maui with the incredible shamanic healer Jeni Dawn and I. We are teaming up our superpowers. We are putting on, again, truly a once-in-a-lifetime retreat this coming March at the Sheraton in Maui. It is Wednesday, March 13th through Sunday, March 17th. There is going to be truly life-changing content, unbelievable community, incredible other people. I am truly thinking of this as a year of therapy in 5 days. As a former therapist, I know the benefits of going week to week, but there truly is something powerful about coming together, doing all of the work in a gorgeous place. There is going to be fun. There is going to be girlfriend time. There is going to be learning. There is going to be deep, deep work, and all in one of the most life-changing places I have ever been, Maui, Hawaii. There is incredible, feminine, gorgeous energy there. We are going to be talking about all of the most life-changing life skills that she and I have, and it is going to be the best way for you to spend 5 days that I could possibly imagine. So come join us. The link is below. There are only probably 5 spots left at this point. So make sure that you grab a friend, you come, you can have your own room, a separate room, but I promise you, you are not going to want to miss the event. I cannot wait to hang out with you in Maui. See you there.
one of the pieces of your work that really, really resonated, that made it clear to me about the fact that I was an introvert, because when I was kind of like on the fence, was the baby in the backseat. Was
So
when
good.
I read that part and I was like, oh my goodness, I am so extroverted when I am in my baby in the backseat. So that, like, I was like, boom, mic drop. That was it. Like, I know I'm an introvert now because that description of the baby in the backseat that you have in your books.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, that is so me. And that it, like, I was like, whoa, how does she know? Like, that's so crazy. How does she know? But that was the clear indicator. And I will say, if anybody is, uncertain about if they're on the fence of what they are, introverted or extroverted, like, go read that section and of your type and see if it really resonates, because for sure I am extroverted as the baby.
That's such a great point, Stephanie. Thank you. And the last episode, so what is that, Stephanie?
Episode
2, I think. There's an episode 0,
I know,
which is
throws it
really
off.
flipping me out. It's very confusing. So it's episode 2. I talk about the front seat and the back seat. And you're right. There's a lot of talk out there right now about ambiverts and a lot of talk of like, I'm both. And first of all, that's a bunch of bullshit. There is no such thing as ambiverts, but we do have we have an introvert and an extrovert in our front seat. So
yeah.
we both, we have both parts of us. But what Stephanie's talking about is a very powerful, eye-opening experience of where you go under deep stress or when you're doing too much stuff that you suck at. So my second book is called Don't Do Stuff You Suck At. And when you're put into this place of your back is up against a wall, you're stressed out, your reptilian brain comes out, and we have 2 reactions. We fight or we flee. And extroverts happen to flee. You do the exact opposite. So somebody like myself and all the extroverts listening right now, we hide, right? I mean, I am all about pizza and Netflix. My baby loves me some pizza and loves a binge watch day. I pull the drapes. I may not want to get out of bed. I plan. I can feel it coming. How many of you can feel it coming? You know, like, oh my God, I need a day. I need a day to hide. And it's not good. But that's how you can tell. And so what Stephanie's saying is, as a slight introvert, right? Like a 4 you were mentioning. It was clear to you because your baby comes out fighting.
Oh,
she's kind of a bitch, right?
Oh, she is. She's a big bitch. She's like yelling and screaming and barking orders, and it's ugly. But I was like, whoa, that is totally me. And I can confidently say now, I'm an introvert in my front seat, but the baby in the back seat is all extra.
Yeah. And how bad does that, I mean, it probably freaks you out when it happens too, but it certainly freaks other people in your life out because it's the exact opposite of how we normally show up in the world.
And I will say that, like, understanding the 4 people in the car is so helpful, because my husband too, he is an introvert. So naturally his baby in the backseat is extroverted. So in classic, textbook, he comes out the same way that I do. And it's like, when I can see that, I know that's where he is. This actually just happened last week where he came out with that. And I was like, wow, that is baby in the back seat. And I knew to, like, not engage or just not, like, I was able to handle it differently than, I would before, because I knew he was under stress. I knew, like, all of the situations that were going on that were making him be the baby in the back seat. And that's not his best self, but that's what it was.
And so you now have different language and framework, right? You can understand it. You see it and you could say, oh, okay, what's going on here, babe? What did I do? How can I help? So let's go there for just a second. I think you've got a couple more stuff you want to say, but I want to talk about, so I'm currently with opposite, and you two are both married to introverts. So introverts married to introverts. Tell me, in your experience, how that is for you guys to have 2 introverts, and then just tell me about it. I'm curious if one of you sometimes has to show up more extroverted, like you'd never leave the house kind of a thing. Like, how does that show up in your marriage, being married to the same type?
I think what's funny is there's a greater understanding of each other. And there's definitely, I know with my husband, we respect it. So, for instance, when we're planning things, or I'll ask him to go to an event, or he'll ask me to go to an event, there'll be this pause. And we giggle because I know what he's doing and he knows what I'm doing. So a lot of times we'll answer the question for the other. I'm like, so you'll have half a day before that, and we'll probably leave, by 10 o'clock. And so then you'll have all Sunday to chill.
Oh, this is hilarious.
We kind of can preference, like he knows, like,
you'll have your chill time.
We have our chill time.
When is it though? Yeah.
Over the Thanksgiving break, we giggle because we both tripped, meaning we didn't track our worlds, and we had a Wednesday night event, we had a Thursday night event, and then we had a Friday night event, and on Saturday, we were both almost in tears. Oh. And I just looked at him and said, I don't know that I can do today. And he's like, we got to make it through the day. And then Sunday, nothing. He goes, and we both messed that up because we weren't tracking. Yeah. And so there's this piece of kind of ease because we understand it. And if I say that I'm like, babe, I'm going to sit this one out, it doesn't matter what it's about. If it was an event I was supposed to go to, if him and the kids are going to the movie, if it's around church, he knows that it's not that I don't want to go. I just need some time to fill my cup because I'm feeling my edge come in.
Yeah.
Mm. And we can also, there's this other piece where we've committed to something either together or individually, and we can hear each other try to talk ourselves out of it. So, like, he signed up for a speaking series because he's going to learn to do voiceover. And he was like, oh, the class is tonight and the day's been really full. And I said, so you don't want to go right now, right? Because you don't know where it's at. You don't know anybody. And so he's like, yeah, and I'm just kind of tired. I said, you've wanted to do this for 2 years. You need to go, and I'm going to push you out the door. Nice. And so we actually know that about each other. Yeah. And he'll watch me do it as well. And he's like, go, you're going to have fun. You're going to enjoy it. But you can feel that wallflower energy come in, I call it, where we kind of just want to disappear and go, I don't want to do that. So it's really, for me, it's freeing after being in the opposite type of relationship where it wasn't understood, where now it feels fully supported.
Yeah. And I love being able to understand either the same or the opposite without pathologizing it.
Yes.
And I guess this is where I will say this for the first time on the podcast is people ask me all the time, do you think it's easier to be married to your same type? And the answer is yes. Do I think it's better? No. Do I think it's a recipe for success or failure? No. Is it easier? Yes. Because you understand each other better. Mm-hmm. So I will just drop that there. I will probably do multiple episodes on that in the future. But Steph, tell me your experience.
I think about our life, our house, pre-kids, when both us introverts, we could just be our introverted selves, and what we would do, just staying home, reading, watching a show, doing things in the house, and maybe occasionally, getting together with friends. But I think about that, and then our lives now with 2 extroverted children, and how we have to do our weekends. Because they're extroverted and they need to get that. And it just the noise level in our house too. I mean, kids are loud, but extroverted kids are loud. And so I think there's a real difference there in our lives, pre-kids and post-kids, because of the introduction of these little extroverted monsters in our house.
I love it. I want to speak to that one piece you said for a moment. I do think it's easier. But even when I was in a relationship with an extrovert, I was okay with his extrovertedness.
Sometimes that's easier.
I had no problem. You go be you. Just let me sit here.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him on several occasions, just let me be me. You go do you. I'll show up and be there and get there when I'm right. But he had the hard time accepting that because I think it's about acceptance, which is what you talk about. Can you accept the other? When you know who they are, just let them be who they are.
Yeah.
I think for me, I find friendships are easier with extroverts. I find most of my friends are extroverts, and I do find that when I am in friendship with an introvert, there you gotta put in more work to communicate. So yeah, That's easier.
Yeah. This is a really powerful conversation. And again, there's like 3 more dichotomies to go, but I do think this is a big one because this is what we do in our world is we pathologize people. I mean, I think about the parents that I know, my dear friends that are parents, and they're judging their children and what's wrong with them. I mean, they'll literally say things like, what's wrong with them? They come home from school and they want to go in their room and read for a while. And I'm like, they're probably an introvert. They just need time to come home and process. Or your spouse comes home and he or she needs time to decompress. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It does. And how annoying is it, right? To be judged and to be questioned and to say what's wrong with you instead of just being curious. I mean, one of the best things I learned from being a therapist and going to graduate school is literally just get curious about people. Don't try to manage them in any way. It's not your job. It's not your role. It's literally our role to get curious, especially if you've made a choice to be in relationship with somebody. So sometimes we don't have a choice. You're born into a family, but you are friends with somebody or you're in a relationship with somebody. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now that are currently married and you don't, I have a choice right now who I'm with, but these 2 don't. And you guys, if you're married, don't. You've made that choice to be committed to somebody. And, I get that question a lot of like, what if I'm already in a relationship? I'm like, then it's a choice to accept them. It's a choice to learn your own type. It's a choice to come in, to use Brené Brown's language, to kind of lean in and be vulnerable and daring greatly. Is that what it's called? And her whole thing is like to show up and be vulnerable and say, this is who I am. These are my ugly bits. This is how I've been hurt in the past. These are my traumas. This is my personality type. This is how I need you to treat me. And it's just this continuation of continuing to learn about ourselves, to learn about those that we're in relationship with. And one of the coolest things, one of my Tim Weber, actually, I'll give a shout out to him. He was one of my professors in graduate school, and he was married for some crazy amount of time, 35 years or something. And he would say, I get the blessing of waking up to a new woman every single day.
Brilliant.
Right? And I mean, he would joke about it because people would be like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, she went out in her life every day and something changed her. Something evolved her as a human being. And I get to wake up and explore this new woman that I've known with and slept next to for 35 years, but she's become a new being in a day because something happened to her and changed her and evolved her. And so I think this is all part of what we're talking about, is just knowing ourselves, being curious, loving other people for who they are, and loving ourselves for who we are. I mean, Jeni, I think you spoke to that so beautifully of like, hey, bro, this is who I am. Quit judging me. Quit trying to change me. Quit trying to do whatever. Just let me be me. Because the bottom line is, and maybe we'll kind of end here, is that we don't change. No. We don't change. Our type does not change. Yes, we can evolve. Yes, we learn new things, but we are who we are. Jeni, you're always going to be an INFP. Stephanie, you're always going to be an INFJ. And this is who I am. This is always who I'm going to be. So I can either change myself, which is just idiotic for other people, or instead I can just go find other people who dig who I am. Guess what? That has worked.
That worked.
That's what I did. I mean, I completely upended my entire life and just got rid of a bunch of people who didn't want to accept me, and the husband being one of them. Yeah. Like, if I just show up and say, hey, this is who I am, I'm going to let my freak flag fly, and if you're not into it, there's literally no skin off my back because I can't judge that. I mean, it kind of goes back to Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The 4 Agreements. One of the agreements is don't take anything personally. That's none of my fucking business. If you're not into what I'm throwing down into this world, that's typically not my problem. Because you can not like me, but that's not for me to be concerned about. You don't like me for whatever reason you don't like me. But I am doing a disservice. And I really want everybody to hear this before we close, that I am doing a disservice. You listeners are doing a disservice. Jeni, Stephanie, we are all doing a disservice in this world when we don't show up as God designed us. When we don't show up as our authentic, genuine, real, innate selves, we are doing every single person in our lives a disservice. You're doing your children a massive disservice. You are doing your spouse a disservice. You are doing all of your friends a disservice. There is no way in hell I would be doing this podcast, writing the books, doing all the work that I do if I hadn't said, if you're not going to accept me for who I am, I got to move on.
Mm-hmm.
I have to move on because I was being suppressed. Who I was not acceptable. It was not acceptable in my relationship, and I could have stayed in that. But look at all of the disservice. It's just, you're doing a disservice. So whether you have 5 people in your life or however many people are listening to this right now, like if Jeni doesn't show up and just be who she is, Stephanie doesn't show up and be who she is, and I don't show up and you don't show up as the listener who you are, we are doing a disservice, not only to ourselves, but everybody in our life.
And I think that was really clear to me when I started, working with you, and you are your authentic self. If that's on the stage, if that's in a Facebook Live, if that's on video, if that's in this podcast, that is who you are now. But when I look, I was playing around on your page.
Shit.
I came across a really old video, probably when you were still married, probably back in that time. I was like, who is this person? Who is this Jessica? Your hair color was different. Your the coloring in the whole Facebook Live was different, like dark, and just I was like, this is like an introverted Jessica, or I don't even know who this is. It was so bizarre.
And what's interesting, Steph, is during that time, I was my baby in the back seat.
Yeah.
I was introverted. I totally wasn't my authentic self because, well, first of all, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who I was anymore. I had been oppressed and suppressed, and part of that was choice. I mean, I chose to have that happen, so I'm not necessarily even blaming that. It just, that was my choice. But you're right. I wasn't showing up authentically who I was because I was allowing that relationship to suppress who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, 6 or 7 years later, I have just continued, and I want all of the listeners, this isn't about me. I just want people to continue to uncover who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's hard in our 20s. We don't technically know who we are. A lot of us get into the wrong jobs. A lot of us get into the wrong marriages. A lot of us make these wrong choices, but it's just a choice. People ask me all the time, like, do you regret it? I'm like, fuck no, I don't regret it, because I wouldn't be who I am and what I'm doing if I hadn't learned all that stuff about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. I can imagine watching those and going, who is this person? Because I completely wasn't fully my freak flag.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this too, the more we are ourselves, the better it's going to be. But I will also say not everyone's going to like it.
Nope.
You're going to lose people. I've lost a great number of friends because they don't like what I'm about. And I have to be fine with that. I am fine with it. I've had to release that and let that go. And they don't really want any part of me. They wanted the suppressed, they wanted the coiffed, they wanted the more perfect version of me. And when I just started saying, that's fucking stupid, like I'm over it, I don't want to be that person anymore. You do lose people. But again, the more that you show up, whether you're an entrepreneur, a mom, you work in corporate America, I don't even care what it is. The more you show up authentically the way that you are, the more freak flag you let it fly, the more authentic you are, the better and easier your life will become.
Yeah. I think
Maybe not at the beginning, but it will get better.
Yeah. When I was asking you about like, how do I deal with Austin's extrovertedness? Like I definitely, I felt that concern in myself about like, I don't want to squash it. Like, I don't want to make him an introvert, but I also need to protect myself and my introvertedness. So how do I deal with this in a way that isn't, trying to suppress him? Because I don't want to scar him in that way. I want him to like be him and be his best extroverted self.
Yeah.
But I don't, I need to be careful about my energy and what I can take too.
And so stay tuned for that episode, because that's going to be probably multiple series of episodes of because I'm sure people are listening going, please answer that right now. And the answer is we can't answer it in the 2 minutes we probably have left. But on one side of that is your own energy, and the other side of that is others. And how do you let people be who they are and still get your own needs met? I mean, to be quite honest, it's $1 million question. It's $1 million question, right? Of being in relationship with other people. And that's why it's an infinity symbol and not a line, is because we're always going back and forth and being on one side of like, I gotta go, I gotta take care of myself. And then, oh, I need to take care of you. And oh, I need to take care of myself and take care of you. So it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies. So before we close, any introverted comments, and this is always hilarious because I'm putting you on the spot as introverts and you're like, shit, I need some time to think about this. And they're looking at their notes right now like, wait, don't put me on the spot, Jessica.
Well,
so what
I was going to say, that's funny though, because, we live in an extroverted world, right? And I remember this question came up when you were speaking at Microsoft was, how do I work with introverts in meetings? Like, how do we do that? Because I want to have a discussion and I want us to have it on the spot and I want us to talk and I want them to contribute, but they're not.
Yeah.
Because they're introverted.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, I had to have my own notes for this, but you didn't give us anything. Like, you wanted to be like free form because you have that skill to process externally, which is like, I had to think about this and process internally before I got here. Yeah, I think that was an interesting question that came up.
Yeah, and it's a powerful one too. And Stephanie comes to me with most of my events. So we were I was giving a keynote at Microsoft, and that was a huge question. Is the population differential is 50-50, and so in a big corporation like Microsoft, 50% of the people are going to be introverted and 50% are going to be extroverted, and the extroverts want to get together and have a jam session, basically. Like, let's talk, let's freeform, let's throw this stuff out there, like I love to do. And every introvert needs time to think. They need time to process. And so they're saying, like, how do I get the best out of introverts? And one of those ways is you let them know ahead of time. Like, I just recorded an episode with my sister, who's also an introvert. She was like, girl, I am not coming over until you tell me what we're going to talk about. I need some time to process. Yeah. Versus David, who, he's going to be in the next episode, and he and I just riffed like crazy. Yeah. And he's like, don't ask me anything. Don't even tell me. And so it's just a total different way of being. Yeah. But we, again, this is about putting our own oxygen mask on first, of knowing how we function, but then how do other people function. So it's a lot like love languages. Like, we don't always live within our own minds, right? We have to understand that 50% of the population processes information differently than we do and has different energy. So
unless you're a hermit, you're living in relationship with other people. Yeah. But am I correct that introverts are marginalized in,
very
this
much.
Dichotomy?
Yeah,
okay,
I'm going to do
live in an extroverted world.
I'm going to do a whole episode on marginalized types, and this is not something you'll probably read anywhere else, because I like to say that I make up facts, and this is a fact that I've made up, is that we do live in an extroverted world. I mean, how many friends do you have on Facebook, and how much are you posting, and where are you, and I want to know what's going on, and kids, how many freaking activities?
Praised. The extroverted is praised.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of where I get extrovert envy, sort of. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, of my extroverted friends, they have so many friends and they have it's just out there and they can easily be on social media, whereas I can't, and so I start having a little bit of extrovert envy where.
Isn't this interesting? I was saying, we're going to close. We could probably talk about this for 4 hours, because you guys are right. You're bringing up
coming up.
And I love this. So keep talking, because this is, you keep bringing up such great examples. And I, as an extrovert, oftentimes kind of wish I was an introvert too, because I believe, sometimes I just wish I could shut down. I wish I could close up. I wish I could put my phone away. But there is this kind of obsessive need to want to get validated externally. Mm-hmm. There is this, hey, what's going on out here? There's a total FOMO going on. And so this is good.
Yeah, there was, when you asked about final thoughts, I think the thing that came in for me was, if you're operating in a circle and you have curiosity about somebody, or you want to get to know somebody, or you think somebody is standoffish or intimidating, I invite you to ask them for a one-on-one meeting. Mm-hmm. I invite you to ask them for a coffee meeting, because give them time. It's most likely that person is the introvert, and they're just not going to shine in that environment. Like, I know people who have met me and gotten to know me more. They're like, I would have never have thought. And I'm like, yeah, like, that's not my environment, so you're not going to see me. So if you can give me time and you give me a little space for me to settle in, you're now going to see a more true expression of me.
And extroverts, please know too that you can't force an introvert. So there's oh my God, these two are dying right now. That was a hilarious response.
That's good.
Oh, you guys are funny. But this is what extroverts do, right? We want to like corner you at a party and be like, oh my God, tell me everything about you. And what about this? And where are you going? And and these two are looking at me like I'm a crazy person right now. And so this is what extroverts try to do, though. We want to bring you in, but it can be so uninviting. And I talk about this in episode, whatever it is, 1, I think, of they want to be invited. And sometimes that means they may need their own time, or they need some space, or they may need to go for a walk because they don't want to be interviewed over coffee or something. And so, yes, when we extroverts like come at people and we want to force people to, or introverts to engage, sometimes they don't want to engage.
Yeah, I think the most, like, the thing that brings me to my truest self is the curiosity. And I know that you use curiosity so much in your work. I've been a client of Jeni's before, and that's been a huge piece of like, well, get curious about that, or get curious about that. And I think when somebody comes to me with curiosity, that's where I feel, oh, okay, I could be a little more comfortable, and we're in a setting where it's just us. And I feel like that is where I come out a little more.
Yeah. And I actually do better with, if it's an extrovert that meeting, talk about yourself for a while. Share what's going on with you and ask a question, but not 20 questions.
Yeah.
Because you're going to find as I open, there's going to be more. But if you come at me, I'm going to shut down right away.
Listen.
Yeah.
Quiet.
Yeah.
Let their energy open. And yeah, again, the more one-on-one. Because again, I mean, extroverts, just the banter, the stuff, the loudness, we can go and go and go and go and go and go. And these two are looking at me right now like, ugh, it's such different energy. And it's not right or wrong energy. No. It's just different energy. And with the population differential, again, 50-50, I think extroverts are just doing themselves such a massive disservice by pretending that that half of the population has the same energy and coming at them with that same energy that they would an extrovert. You're just missing out. Yeah.
So powerful.
All right, ladies. I'm going to be honest. We got to close because we got other shit to do. Like, it's a girl boss day up in here. Work. We are podcasting. We are planning for Maui. We got Stephanie here doing all the front seat life stuff. So thank you, you two, for doing this. Thank you. I mean, every introvert I have on here, I feel like I should especially thank you because this is not your favorite thing in the world to do. And so thank you, ladies. Thank you, listeners. It's such an honor. I love bringing this content to you in a way that I know that you can hear it from other people. So I know some of you resonated with Stephanie, and some of you resonated with Jeni, and some of you resonated with me. And this is the entire point of this, is for us to, again, have the best relationship with ourselves, but with others as well. So thank you.
You're welcome. This was fun.
From the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you so much for listening. I know that you have a ton of options, and the fact that you are taking time to listen to the Front Seat Life podcast means absolutely everything to me. If you're interested in learning more about the Front Seat Life way of life in the community, there's a couple ways that you can do that. First is always starting with your personality assessment tool. It's available on my website at jessicabutts.com. It's totally free, and it will help you figure out your personality type so you'll have some idea of what we're talking about. Next is, if you're interested in hiring me for a keynote or some coaching or strategy days or the fabulous and amazing Front Seat Life community, you can find out all about all of that at jessicabutts.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.